This is Between the Uprights. Football is life. The rest is just details. Here are your hosts, Joe, Matt, and Chris.
The battle for the North is officially on, and no, I'm not talking Game of Thrones, baby. It is the Detroit Lions hosting the Minnesota Vikings for Week 18, and it is about to be absolutely incredible because the winner will not only have the NFC North crown, they will also hold the road to the Super Bowl through the NFC. The Vikings go into Detroit. Literally, no one has talked about them all year. We've talked about them a few times, including pissing off Viking fans saying, are the Vikings too overhyped? Get over it, guys, okay? They're a little much. But you know what? I'm here for Sam Darnold. The guy is putting up the stats, should be in the MVP conversation, regardless of what people think. He's absolutely balling out. Matt sent something today in the chat that absolutely illustrated that every other quarterback who had done what he has done won the MVP with the exception of Patrick Mahomes. And that was the only time a quarterback had done what Sam Darnold is doing right now that didn't win the MVP. And he's not even in the discussion. Not even in the discussion. But the Detroit Lions, despite all of their injuries, and they have a ton of them on the defensive side of the football right now, are still putting up tons of points. It is going to be a foot race. That is the only way the Lions can win right now, is it has to be a foot race. It's going to be an absolute sprint to the finish to see who can score the most points. And I cannot think of a better place to see it than Week 18 for the division, for the 1 seed in the NFC. But I'm going to go to our resident Lions homer, the guy who has been on the Lions train since day one, since they hired Dan Campbell and they started talking about biting off kneecaps. Matt has been on the Lions train the whole time. Day one guy right there. Not even a Lions fan, just said, that is the guy. That's the head coach. That's where I want to be. So Matt, tell me why the Detroit Lions are winning the NFC North.
Oh, boy. I'm a little nervous, to be completely honest with you. I'm a little bit nervous because, listen, Joe, like you said, we came in here and we, especially Chris, I was probably the highest on them, but especially Chris. And Sammy wasn't here yet. He probably would have been higher than me on the Vikings.
I saw the video. It was disgusting.
But
unbelievable acts.
We as a collective went pretty hard on the Vikings, and at the time I think they were 11-2, and nobody was really talking about them, and we said they were overhyped, and that's probably why the Vikings fans got mad. But again, we hadn't seen it, before with Sam Darnold. We're still trying to see it with Sam Darnold. Sam Darnold, this is his first year really being a good quality quarterback. But with that being said, the Vikings, listen, if you don't think the Vikings are like a legitimate Super Bowl contender now, like, I don't know what to tell you. Like, they're 14-2. They're tied. They're tied for the best record in literally the best division that's ever existed. Right? Joe sent the stats today. Literally, the Vikings, what games were it? I think it was the Lions winning on Monday Night Football clinched the fact that they were going to have the best record as a collective division in the history of football. So the Vikings are tied for the division lead of literally the greatest division in the history of the NFL. So if you don't think that team is a Super Bowl contender after beating the Packers, after doing all the things that they've done beating the Packers twice, after doing all the things that they've done throughout the course of the season, having a quarterback who, like Joe mentioned, is putting up MVP numbers. The quarterbacks, I think the stat was the quarterbacks who have thrown for 4,100 yards, 35 touchdowns, and have 14 plus wins, 7 of the 8 have won MVP. So when I talked about Sam Darnold being an MVP a couple weeks ago, that was a fact, okay? He should be at least in the conversation, at least third, fourth in that conversation, because he is having an unbelievable season. But again, the fact that we've seen that from the offense, Sam Darnold, Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, TJ Hawkinson, we could talk about the weapons all day. And the fact that they have Brian Flores and that defense humming, that's still one of the best units in the NFL. That team has to be considered a legitimate Super Bowl contender. And even if they lose this upcoming week, I think in the first round game, they'll probably be playing Tampa Bay. And I think they're going to beat Tampa Bay, and they're going to have a really good shot in that second round game. So I think the Vikings are to be reckoned with. But what do you expect from me, ladies and gentlemen? What more do you want from me, ladies and gentlemen? Do you want me to come in here and say that I'm on the Vikings train now, that I think the Vikings are going to win the Super Bowl? I won't, because I don't. The Detroit Lions are still winning the Super Bowl, whether you like it or not, okay? They've got a ton of injuries. So what? Okay, everybody gets hurt. Everybody gets injured, okay? You have to overcome. You have to fight through. You have to bite kneecaps off. You have to do what you have to do to get it done, and that is exactly what the Detroit Lions are built on. That's what they're made of, and that's what they're going to continue to do. Jared Goff, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jameson Williams, Jahmyr Gibbs, the entire offensive line, and they still have guys on that defense making plays. Again, we saw Kirby Joseph pick off Brock Purdy a couple times on Monday night. That right there is their formula. They've got to make big plays on the offense. They've got to put up big points. They've got to get to the quarterback, and they've got to make big turnovers, and they got to get turnovers. They have to get interceptions. They got to get fumbles. They got to get stuff like that. And we know Dan Campbell's going to try to sneak points any way he can with those 4th downs, 2-point conversions, onside kicks, and stuff like that. So, again, if you thought I was going to come in here and say, oh, no, the Vikings are going to win, I'm not going to. It's never going to happen. The Lions are winning the division. The Lions are winning the NFC. The Lions are winning the Super Bowl. MVP out.
Hey, I expected nothing less from you on that one right there. You started off big on the Vikings train and immediately jumped off. You love to bait people in. I'm here for it. I love it. But I also want to say this right now. I said something else about the Detroit Lions. I said they'd be the first team to have 2,000-yard receivers and 2,000-yard rushers, and I was wrong. But you know what I was right about? They are the first team in NFL history to have 2 wide receivers and 2 running backs have 1,000 or more all-purpose yards on the same team. So I got it kind of right. I just said the wrong thing. So don't take that off on me right here. But the Vikings do have something going for them right now, and that is a very, very good defense that generates shit tons of pressure, and Brian Flores is known for throwing the kitchen sink at teams and absolutely dominating them any way possible he can, but it does open them up for a decent passing attack to take advantage of them because they do play a lot of man coverage, and they do that because they have to make up for sending all of the pressures that they send. So, Sammy, I'm going to go to you on this one. Can the Detroit Lions get after Jared Goff, I apologize, can the Minnesota Vikings get after Jared Goff, who is not as mobile as you want to say, with this extra pressures, with these extra sorts of things, and make this a football game and possibly sneak out with the NFC North title?
Well, the Lions' offensive line is the best in football. Let's make that very clear, okay? And so no matter what kind of pass rush Brian Flores is going to be able to manufacture, I think this offense is going to be able to go up and down the field against the Vikings. I do think it's going to happen. But much like Matt said, I really am big on Sam Darnold this year, man. And it's not because my name is Sam either. I really do think that this guy, Sam Darnold, we're witnessing a career renaissance. And I think what kind of goes under the bus is that he spent a year in San Francisco and was kind of picking the brain of a guy like, I know picking the brain off Brock Purdy is not necessarily crazy, but being around a head coach like Kyle Shanahan helps. Then going after that to going to a coach like Kevin O'Connell, who I think right now has stamped himself as a top 10 coach in the league, hands down, might be even top 5, the way he's coaching these guys. I think the fact that it kind of proves, and I saw this tweet, I think it was Emmanuel Acho who said that coaching and confidence matters more than skill set. And I could not agree more, because I've seen so many QBs go to certain teams, like stink it up, particularly the Jets. I hate to rag on the Jets, but like the Jets are like the biggest example. The Panthers are another big example.
I'll say Panthers too, yeah.
The Panthers are another big example. Like you had Baker Mayfield and Sam Darnold in the building, and you somehow couldn't make it work. Like how?
Both might throw 40 touchdowns this year.
Yeah, that's insane to me. Baker and shout out to Baker Mayfield, because he has gone through a lot in terms of like his receiving core getting hurt, and he's still putting up insane numbers. I'm not gonna lie, kind of a sleeper for MVP as well. A lot of MVP candidates this year, let me tell you. Here's my concern with the Lions in particular. Here's my main concern, and I know you guys say injuries. Oh, who cares? Biting off kneecaps, buddy. I'm going to name you everybody on IR right now, and you tell me if you're concerned, okay? Aiden Hutchinson, all right? Ali McNeil, all right? Malcolm Rodriguez, Alex Anzalone, Derek Barnes, Carlton Davis. What about David Montgomery, huh? What about him? Look, those are big essential pieces that if you wanted to win the Super Bowl, they needed to be on the field. I love Dan Campbell. I love what he's done for this organization. And I will never speak any ill will towards Dan Campbell and the way he coaches football and how he approaches. I think that one of the most BS things that I've ever heard was that, Dan Campbell is going to be the reason they never win the Super Bowl. That's got to be one of the most idiotic things I've ever heard. Because how in the world are they even getting in position? What were the Lions doing before that had, like, the Lions did everything by the book for so long, for like years, and didn't win a single playoff game. And all of a sudden, Dan Campbell comes in, he does it his way. They win 2 playoff games, and here they come. Oh, it's going to keep them from winning. My guy, the reason they are like this is because of how he coaches. That is the reason. That is the nucleus of how this team can go, on top of the fact that they have a genius drafting for them. So, but it's just too many injuries to overcome, man. It's too many. I do think that the Vikings and the Lions, this game is going to be a shootout. Let's make that very clear. It's going to be a shootout. But I do think that the Vikings, and this has been their bread and butter all year long, turnovers. They've been they can force a lot of turnovers, and I think that is going to be costly. I understand the Lions offense is electric, and they're gonna get theirs against this Vikings defense. But the Vikings defense, this is an elite defense we're talking about. Okay, this is one of the top 5 defenses in the NFL. I trust them to get a stop, even with this Lions defense. The Lions defense, if they were fully healthy, I'd be on board. But they're not. They are banged up to the bone, and because of that. And only because of that, I want to stress this out. I had the Lions making the Super Bowl prior to all these injuries. I did. And now I can't, because they're just too banged up. They are a literal hospital. This might be an upset pick. I'm picking the Vikings to win this division and go to Detroit and win this division. I think the injuries are too much. I think it's going to cost the Lions. I think the Lions are going to be right back in it next year. And who knows, I might pick them to win the Super Bowl next year as well. But quite frankly, this team is just way too banged up for me to believe that they can go up against these top tier NFC teams. They can do it against Green Bay, because Green Bay, I mean, I don't trust their defense or their offense enough. But for the Vikings, I know it's crazy. I trust Kevin O'Connell. I trust Sam Darnold. I trust Brian Flores in this defense. And I'm not going to lie, guys. I might pick the Vikings to win it all. I might, man. I'm really in on it. Like, lately. Now I'm playing Eagles all the way. What are we talking about?
I mean, but you brought up some really good points. I mean, there are some clear things that are going to be deciding factors here. And you talk about the turnovers, right? And Aaron Jones is actually the second most fumbles by a running back this year with 5, and he actually is tied for the most lost fumbles with Ramondre Stevenson at 3. So there is some turnover concerns on the offensive side of the ball for the Vikings as well. And you look at sort of the conversation about like the running back comparison for the lead back, the quarterback comparison. These teams are identical, almost completely identical on offense. The really big problem that's going to come in here is how healthy and how good can the Detroit Lions defense play. Now, don't get me wrong, playing at home is a big advantage for the Detroit Lions, because the crowd noise can assist the defense, right? Where they can just pin their ear back and get after them. That is the key winning formula for the Detroit Lions, just to be able to pin their ears back and get after people, because if they can't do that, it really puts a lot of their, secondary, third string players at risk on the back end. But there is another thing I want to talk about right here. And just before I hand it over to Chris, this is going to be an incredible game. This is going to be an amazing game. I'm fully on board with what Sammy said, and this is going to be a shootout. I just don't know who's going to be the key player to really flick this one way or the other for which team, right? Where's this needle going to land on who is going to make that decisive play? Because it's going to come down to one play. And there is a problem that the Vikings have, and it has reared its ugly head consistently, and it reared its head again this weekend against the Packers, where they were dominating the Packers early on, and with 2 minutes left, it's a 2-point game. 2 minutes left is a 2-point game. What are we fucking talking about here? You can't let teams back in like that. And they have done that so many times this year. In fact, I saw a stat, and it is absolutely insane. The Minnesota Vikings, since Kevin O'Connell, has been there since I think it was 2021, 2022, has played the most one-score games of any NFL franchise. I think they're at like 30, 35, 36 or something like that. They are 25-9. 25-9 in one-score games. But the fact that you have played the most one-score games in NFL in that span more than any other team, that is a concerning track record there. And their best year at that was actually 2022 was the first year that they did that. 2023, I think they went like 6-8, and then this year they're I think they're like 1-7, 1-8 or something like that. So they have been in a lot of one-score games, and they have come out ahead in a lot of those one-score games. But the Detroit Lions is not a team you want to be down one score against and expect to win, because they, like Matt said, Dan Campbell will pull out every trick in the book to make sure he gets that ball back with a chance to score. So, Chris, I want to kick it to you here. Who is winning the NFC North? With everything we've said, we've given you all of this ammo. Who's winning it and why?
I'm excited for this.
Oh, I know you're excited. So let me start by saying I was Sammy. I was if this. I know this is your first time with you having this conversation with us, but I had that same exact concern 2 or 3 weeks ago when we had this conversation. I think me and Matt had it maybe a week or two prior to that, and it was all my concern has been, and not that it continually is, but it always has been their defense and the fact that their defense has just been completely decimated. It doesn't seem to matter. And we could put it a lot on the fact that it is Dan Campbell, and it doesn't matter. You know, they're on their fourth and fifth strings at this point, and they are still finding ways to win. Now, we know a lot of it is on their offense right now, but their offense is also continually putting up 40, 40 plus a game, you know? So when we talk about like who I think is winning it, let me start, Vikings fans, by saying I apologize. I am impressed. I will admit it. I am impressed. I was not to begin with. I didn't think there could. So when we talked about it, there wasn't enough to say like, yes, they're absolute locks. You know, they should be looked at from, you know, different teams that they're going to be playing with the playoffs and be concerned. Like, I didn't see that. I saw them winning against a lot of kind of mid-grade teams, and they were all by, you know, less than 7 points. So it wasn't really a huge, like, to me, there wasn't a big formula where like, yeah, they're just blowing people out. They have huge games. Like, I hadn't, up to that point, I hadn't really seen it. The last 2 games for me has kind of turned me to that mode. And if I am the Vikings, I'm going to take a Packers move, and you should be re-signing Sam Darnold with the way this team is playing for him, the way with the offense feeling about him. You sign him for a 2 or 3 year deal. You give JJ the amount of time that he needs to get used to the NFC, to develop, to get past his injuries. And that's essentially what the same thing the Packers did. And it seems to have worked out very well. So I feel like that should be their number one key coming into the offseason, is they should be signing Sam Darnold to a 2 or 3 year contract. I think he deserves that. I think he's done enough for that. And I am impressed. And I do feel like he probably should be in the MVP conversation, to be honest. And I've been a Josh Allen MVP fan for probably the last 4 or 5, about to say 5 years. That's a lie. 5 weeks. I do think he's done a lot, and I still feel like he should, based on the fact of what an MVP is supposed to be. But that's for another conversation. So when we talk about who's going to win, I'm going to go with the Lions. I think the Lions are going to pull it out. So my biggest thing is this: so both of their defenses actually are considered bottom of the league in passing defense. So the Lions are ranked at 31, and the Vikings are at 28. Then you look at the rushing. So they're both high on rushing, right? So they both have top 5 rushing defenses. Vikings are second, Lions are third. But what you don't really get to see is that, you know, they both have top 10 in scoring defenses. They both have top 10 in third down defenses. But the Lions are better on the offensive side in that exact stat line. When you talk about scoring defenses, when you talk about third downs, Lions are better. You're looking at Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison. You're looking at, you know, Amon St. Brown and Jameis Williams, who, if I'm not mistaken, are both in that 1,000-yard conversation. Who saw Jameis Williams hitting 1,000 yards this year? Apparently you did. I did not. I did not at all. So I think right now for me it's red zone. And like y'all have already talked about with the Vikings, even was it Sunday? Was it Sunday night that they went up against the Packers? it should not have been a close game. It should not, based on the way they were playing, and their defense was balling out. Don't get me wrong, their defense was doing fantastic, but that second set was a little bit different. And when the Packers started figuring things out, there was a huge difference. It should have never been that close. And had it been for, a couple things gone the other way, we might be having a different conversation. And I think if that happens, if you get into a shootout with the Lions and you're in their territory, I don't see how the Vikings come out with that game. So I have the Lions. I have them taking the division. I have them taking the number 1 seed. I have it running through Detroit. Congratulations, Detroit. I think y'all absolutely deserve it. And I am calling them to go to the Super Bowl this year.
It's crazy, but the more we talk about this, it feels like a heavyweight boxing match, doesn't it? It really feels like a heavyweight boxing match. We haven't seen two teams this good go off against each other realistically this late in the season since we used to watch the Manning Brady Bowls, right? Like the regular season Colts Patriots back in the day, like the two good best teams in the AFC going head to head. You can make an argument that the Vikings and the Lions are two of the best teams in the NFC going head to head. And not only does it decide the division, it decides the 1 seed. And I understand, Sammy, the Eagles are there. I said one of the best teams in the NFC. I didn't say the two best. I said two of the best. Okay. I didn't fucking sit there and be quiet. I'm finishing this out. But it is about to be a heavyweight matchup between Sam, the Ghostbuster Darnold, going against Jared, the Prettier Ryan Gosling Goff, baby. That is what's about to go down here. Lions, Vikings, tune in.
This has been Between the Uprights. Football is life. The rest is just details.